All right, homework 3-2. All right, in this, you're going to be given some data, some scatter plots, and you have to answer some questions about them. So the things you have to understand here is they're going to be asking you about the correlation coefficient R. Okay, so that is just what that means is R is going to vary between 1 being as high as it can go to -1 as being low as it can go. And if you have a correlation coefficient of 1, that means your x and y values are perfectly linear in a positive relationship. So as x is getting bigger, so are the y values. So like in this situation right here, see how perfectly x's are getting bigger, y's are getting bigger. It's a positive slope. I could draw one line through this, all of these points. That has an R value of 1. If those values were going like this in a line with a negative slope, I would say they'd have an R value of -1. All right, if an R value of 0 is going to be something that has no linear relationship, positive or negative slope whatsoever, I would say like this drawing right here is pretty close to 0. There's no relationship between the x's and the y's. They're just all over the place. This one here looks like it's got somewhat of a negative relationship. Here's got somewhat of a positive relationship. This has got an R value that's close to -1, but not exactly -1. This one's got an R value that's probably close to 1, but not exactly 1. Okay, so when I'm answering these questions, so which data set in the sample, correlation coefficient R is equal to -1? Well, if the closest one that's equal to -1 would be this one right here. Let me get rid of some of this stuff if I can. Because this is the only one, in fact, this is the only one here that has a negative slope to the data. All right, so I'd go with, what is that, figure 2 there. All right, and then this next one, which data set indicates the strongest negative linear relationship? Again, I would have to go with 2 again. It's the only one that's got a negative linear relationship. Next, which data set has an apparent positive but not perfect linear relationship? Okay, so this is what I would say is a perfect linear relationship. So this one is positive, but it's not perfect. And so that's going to be 4. And then lastly, for which data set is the sample correlation coefficient closest to 0? And we said this guy right here because there's no positive or negative relationship to that data. They just look kind of random. That's going to be figure 5. Okay, there you have it. Those are going to be just getting used to, again, positive slope, negative slope, R being exactly 1. It would be a perfect linear. You could draw a line and go through all the points. Okay, if it's not exactly 1, you're going to have something like this. Okay, where you could get a line of best fit. Definitely positive relationship, but it's not a perfect relationship. All right, let's see what's next. Okay, so this one, again, there is, well, let's just read these. Number 1, it is saying, a financial magazine conducted a survey. It showed that a person with more years of education tends to have a higher salary. Okay, so the more education you have, the more salary you have. It says that your options are to pick from here. There is no correlation between years of education and salary. There is a correlation between years of education and salary. There may or may not be causation. So further studies would have to be conducted. And then the next one, there is correlation between years of education and salary, just like this other one started. And there is probably also causation. This is because there is an increase in salary with an increase in years in education. All right. So when I first did these, I struggled greatly with trying to decide between these, because this is definitely there is definitely some correlation here, because the more education, the more salary. So they're both increasing at the same time. So, but how do I determine between this or this? And what I've found is you need to go with this one every time. We need to run more studies. Okay? I have yet to see one where they say this is because there's an increase in, I have yet to see where this is probably also causation. They are always wanting to, this may be causation, but they need further studies. So they always go with that one. Okay? So I'd either look for causation, for correlation or not, and then if there is correlation, just say you need more studies. All right, let's look at the next one. So the next one says, a grocery store collected sales data. It found that a change in price does not imply that people will buy more or less milk. Okay, so right there, where it says a change in price does not imply that they'll buy more or less milk, we're going to go with no correlation, okay? Because we don't know. Change in price doesn't seem to go up or down with the buying more or less milk. So we would say no correlation. Go to the next one. He studied his students' history test scores and TV habits. He found that students who watched less TV seemed to earn higher scores on the test. What conclusions should he make? Okay, so in this case, we have students who watch, the less TV you watch, the higher score on the test, okay? So there's some relationship there. One's going down, the other one's going up. So there seems to be a correlation there. Of course, we would need to do more studies on that. So, so I would say there is correlation, but further studies would have to be done on that one. That's what I'd go with on that. All right, so practice those. They gave me struggles at first, but yeah, it's just a matter of reading and looking for the keywords there. All right, and the last one for this section, shown below are scatter plots for data sets. Answer the following question. First one says, which data set appears to show no relationship between its two variables? So there's not a linear relationship. There's not any kind of relationship. Boom, this is the guy. No relationship going on there. Which data set appears to show a negative linear relationship between the two variables? I would have to go with this guy right here. Why? It's definitely linear, and it's got a negative slope, okay? That means the x values are getting bigger as the y values are getting smaller. All right, what's next here? Which data set appears to show a positive linear relationship? There we go. There's some kind of, it's not a perfect positive linear relationship, but it's definitely a positive slope going on there. So that's what I'd pick for that one. And lastly, which data set appears to show a nonlinear relationship? Now, that's different from what I said up here. This is no relationship. There is a relationship going on here between these points. It's not a linear relationship, but there's some kind of relationship. In this case, it's a parabolic relationship. But it's definitely, there is a relationship. There is a pattern to this. It's just not linear. So that's what I'd go with on that one. All right, have fun with those. And we are almost done with the week. One more lesson to go.